I don't know about you guys, but I am so sick and tired of all the podcasts that are 10 steps to a better life, 7 steps to success. Stop giving out so much advice and tell more stories. Guys, what is going on? It's the Empowered People Podcast, where each and every week we are going to tell, share, and listen to stories that are meant to motivate us to action, to motivate us to movement. We believe that so much success, opportunity, education only comes when we're willing to get up and move. As always, each and every Thursday, we like to shine the light on local celebs that are making Kansas City a brighter place, and this is one of the most amazing dudes I've ever met. I don't know if I knew about Thou Mayest Coffee Shop before I had met you, but once you meet Bo Nelson, it's hard to forget. He's one of the most positive, energetic, persistent, driven, passionate, all of the above things. You're going to see. No, you're going to see. There's no way I could introduce him and hype him up more, but this is the reason I love him so much. Is as we're going to get into it, you're going to realize that, like, there's a fad right now of craft coffee, right, or craft beer, or all this kind of stuff. People can say the word and not understand actually anything, jack squat, about agriculture, about the beans, about all this different things that go into making great cups of coffee. Not only coffee, but the space and the experience. And a new venture of Bo's that we'll get into is one of the most amazing experiences I've ever got to take my kids to. It was an awesome time. So Bo Nelson of Thou Mayest, well, not Thou Mayest, sorry, yes, Thou Mayest Roasters. And also Cafe Equinox.
Yeah, I just want to say that today's podcast is sponsored by Thou Mayest Coffee Roasters. This place was started in 2012 by a bunch of garage guys who got serious about their passion and asked that dangerous question, I wonder if you can get paid to do this. That's the hardest question, because that if you can answer that as a yes, then like you have a business. So that was where it started. And it just was kind of white knuckles since, just hanging on, not letting this, the beast, we call it, drag you through the mud. So
one thing, even starting out, and I even talked about agriculture. I feel like I remember talking to you early on, and you were just talking about nature and talking about plants and talking about, in your TED Talk, did you talk about agriculture? And
yeah, probably. I usually talk about agriculture in some way, shape, or form.
And why is that?
It's part of us. It's a primal thing that when you're around plants, you just feel more relaxed. You feel the stress level goes down. I'm sure there's some sort of chemical thing that happens, and it's, we're just ground monkeys at this point. And like, I don't know much about, I'm not smart enough to figure out, know where science, has been in the, ancient past, but I just know that when I'm around plants, like, I feel better. And so that was just, from a very early age. This is despite the fact that my family is in the plant business. I remember just the earliest lessons of my grandma walking me through the woods, teaching me about different native flowers and mushrooms, and here's what kind of tree this is, and when you see the moss, this is the north side of the tree. And so there was just a healthy dose, and especially during the seasons like morel season. And it was just, you got to look for these types of trees and look for the May-apples, and here's what a May-apple is. And we had a whole garden that we used to dig, plants out of the forest and go and watch their bloom cycles and watch how they transition into summer and fall and winter. And it was a really weird, magical childhood. My dad threw our TV out when we were really young because he was just sick of it. Probably like a lot of us that say we need to, he just like yanked the plug. So there's probably a little bit of that like stubbornness, like grab life by the horns that's kind of baked into my DNA too, that just kind of is seeing action before anything. Like, you want to change? Freaking right now, let's go. Throw the TV out, and so that was the start of kind of a strange childhood, one that involved a lot of weird pets coming home with my mom would go to these swap meets and come home with just the strangest animals that we would then take care of. And now my family has a petting zoo, and there's just all sorts of strangeness it's all derived from like a love for the outdoors, a love of nature, and just kind of to guard and keep this thing we call the earth, So, and we're all just part of it, So trying to have that perspective that it's like, ashes to ashes type of deal. Someday we're all going to die. That's all right. We're just going to be worm food, you know. We're going to be plant food at some point, and it's just going to get recycled in, you know. No matter how you look, what happens after, you know, whether it's something spiritual or not, it doesn't really matter. The body decomposes and it becomes part of the soil and part of the earth again. So just kind of that's been an overlay, a very ecclesiastical viewpoint of, you know, we're here to work, we're here to make it better, and, you know, this is your lot, this is your mission in life. You know?
Ladies and gentlemen, you need to stop right now, get a pad of paper and a pencil or a pen to write with, and make sure that you're ready to take notes. Because remember, this is or drink coffee out of these little. But
we're gonna try some hemp milk. Have you had hemp milk?
I think, did I have it? I had it with the hemp milk latte.
Did you?
Yeah, you had a hemp milk latte.
This stuff, it's gonna change the world. It's so sustainable. Everybody's like almond milk. It's like, no way, man. You really get that all, you know, the palate cleanser.
It's good. It's really good.
It's actually really good.
So your love for plants just came.
That's a bunch of plants right there. That's a bunch of plants. Like,
it's
there was
delicious.
a bunch of plants involved in that, you know? Like,
yeah.
Dude, this has a bunch of plants.
This was
plant,
nice.
Right?
So just from your grandmother?
No, this was from...
and you said we. Who's we? Whenever you said we...
Probably my brothers. I don't know. There's probably multiple personality syndrome or something that I'm dealing with somewhere in this. So if I say we, sometimes I mean the team. I don't really believe in the I, and probably a different story for another podcast. But you know, when you have an ego death, when you have an ego trip death, there's not a lot of I that's left to. I mean, it just becomes part of the. It's a very just a strange thing to look at yourself and just watch it die, because you know that the more you can get rid of that thing, the better off that life will be, you know.
And what do you mean when you say ego death?
Yeah, sorry. Let's just go back to the original question, which was who is we? So my brothers, there's 4 of us brothers in the family. There's Ron and Bev, and there's John and Peggy, and then there's my mom, Lori, and my dad, Eric, and then there's 4 of us boys. So I'm number 1. Jonah's number 2, Jesse's number 3, and Judd's number 4. Judd is severely mentally handicapped. He has a form of Angelman syndrome. It's a really low functioning form of autism. So growing up around somebody who doesn't speak the English language but still communicates, you know, that's another skill set that I never knew that was getting baked into my DNA as well. Just taking care of my brother while he was having seizures, and my mom's like driving down the road with like 4 crazy kids in the back. You know how that is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So we have 3 boys. 4 boys would be insanity.
And if one of them was like high needs all the time, you know.
Was he able to go outside and explore and dig and plant?
But I mean, one of us had to be with him at all times, you know. So it was always like making sure we have eyes on Judd, you know, making sure that mom is communicating like the importance of you know, being the importance of being an older brother and caring for others and being compassionate when, you know, he's crying and you can't get him to stop, and he, you know, the more you try to console him, he just gets upset. So there was just a lot of things, you know, that we learned from nature. There's a lot of things that we learned from our grandparents, and just, I'll call it like the pedigree. My mom's family is from Western Kansas, and they're still farming out there today. And I mean, it's just the work ethic is unreal. You know, the lack of complaining, you know, the sense of gratitude, you know, is just, it's pretty humbling, you know, and as long as we don't forget that, you know, all of us have that baked into us somewhere, and to try to learn about that, or to try to uncover some of that, you know, he's a hothead. Well, it's like, he's the kindest person I've ever met, you know? And so I feel like we have these sides of us that tend to like dominate the narrative. You know, oh, he's energetic. He's a crazy coffee guy selling drugs out of, you know, he's just, do you want decaf? He's nuts. He's crazy. And it's like, no, I don't, that's not really who I am. Like, I want to make sure that what's left with people is like a lot of the unsaid, or a lot of just those silent moments of just listening.
What was amazing whenever you say energetic. So when we went on Saturday with my kids, we go and we kind of don't know exactly what's going on, and you're taking order after order. I mean, the line's 25 deep.
Crazy.
And you're like engaged with each person, smiling. I mean, I'm in line for 15 minutes or whatever, watching you smile, engage, make eye contact.
Do you know how many
and then
upsells
also,
of hemp milk I had?
probably a lot. Yeah, because
you were like
I
the
was
crown
one.
jewel on that
I was like a vanilla latte, and you're like made with hemp milk, and I was like,
course.
sure. Yeah. Hey, if you suggest it, I'm going to believe you. But not only that, so here's what I want to say about you is whenever the transaction was over and the person left, the relationship didn't stop. So you noticed that I didn't really know where to go. And you're like, hey, you go out that door right there. Have you seen the greenhouse? And it wasn't just, hey, once I get your money, I'm done with you. It was that continued thing, which just that warmth that just comes from you.
Yeah, a lot of people, they'll say self-awareness. They'll use a lot of other terms for it, presentness or live in the moment. But I mean, when you're in that flow, like when you are doing what you are supposed to be doing, and I want to ask you about this at some point here tonight too, like what is faith? And I don't mean in a religious sense, like in a life sense, because this is like, I believe it's the most powerful force in the universe because it has such hope and it has such love and it has such understanding around it that it can't easily be stopped once it gets going. But the get going part is the hard part. I mean, you just get bombarded with like the negatives of like, you can't do this. That hill's too steep. You're not bankable. Nobody cares about, another coffee roaster or like so-and-so quits or so-and-so you think just go, sells all your trade secrets, or it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just endless, and you can easily be a victim for that. But also in the same sense that like this whole thou mayest thing, like has deep meaning for us. Like thou mayest like be a victim. Also thou mayest in the same moment, like be a champion, and it's like, 6 inches of space is where that occurs. And it's pretty interesting.
Well, and I wonder, sorry,
yeah,
for timeline's sake, going back, growing up. So I grew up the oldest of 4. I had 3 younger sisters. And we didn't have a special needs person in our family, but we grew up in extreme poverty, which brings a lot of special needs to the equation. Did you feel a lot of pressure as the oldest to kind of bypass childhood and step into adulthood a lot sooner than you wanted, expected? Were there extra pressures put on you?
Maybe, but I'm also kind of an old soul anyway, so I don't really like hanging out with. I don't have that many friends that are usually my age. Like I sit with old people to listen to what their stories are. What have you learned? And there's just a lot of sage wisdom that I feel like the younger generation, like we get plugged in and we take off. And I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that have like classic business principles. My dad and my grandpa always go into these, making sure, here's what the classic immutable laws of business, the ones that, when you shake a hand, somebody's hand, you give a firm handshake and look them right in the eyes. Like, here's how you introduce yourself. Here's how you depart gracefully from a meeting. Here's how you politely tell someone no. I'm not interested in that thing that you have that you think that I want, or whatever it is. Like being a graceful business person, like it's an art. And I feel like a lot of that art has been replaced with a little bit with the shroud of just the screen. You can be a jackass to somebody and get away with it really easy because you don't have to look somebody in the face. I mean, that's half of my Yelp reviews. My wife made me stop reading those, but it's like, which that would be a funny podcast, is just read me some of the Yelp reviews and just let me go berserk because there's nothing that quite gets me riled up like that, because you try so hard to like deliver that product and somebody's like picking it apart. But
yeah, anyway. I've heard Yelp reviews are just a cesspool of garbage that you should never pay attention to.
Yeah. So the people who make fun of it, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it's something that we all want to do, but that we always, like at the last second, you're like, yeah, I just probably should sleep on this. And then you do, and you're like, why am I even wasting my time with this? This is garbage, But,
and so did you spend a lot of time, you talked about your grandparents being farmers.
Yeah.
Did you spend a lot of time with them in the summers or things like that?
Yeah.
I mean, so is that where some of that preferring to be with older people
I think so, but also just understanding that it's a lot of blind leading the blind. especially when you're younger. Like I just found myself, and I think this is why I like coffee too. I just found out, a lot of things that I thought were the right way, or like this is how you do it, that it was wrong. And I was like, I wonder how many other wrong things I am about in these things that I call certain in my life. There are no certainties, and that's okay. And just learning to live in that like state of ambiguity. It's not right, it's not wrong. It's like just is. And so I think a lot of that is what allowed me to do this thing called business, because I really loosened up. I was like, I don't care anymore about. I just want to try. I just want to have an idea, and I want to have the willpower and go try to do something, and something positive, because we can sit here and talk about it all day long, and I can agree and disagree, and we can hash it out. But if you're not doing it, who cares?
100%. And I remember, this is a funny, weird tangent, but in calculus,
I feel like that's just going to be the
podcast. Well, no, it's just, I think, I think being an old soul, or realizing that you don't need to necessarily surround yourself with your peers because you're all trying to figure it out at the same time. Like surround yourself by people that know better. I remember being in calculus in college, and the teacher would be talking about derivatives and crazy crap, and everyone would always like try to act like they knew or they could explain it, and I would maybe ask a question. I'd be like, look, dude, I'm not paying you to teach me. I'm paying this guy. So I want to hear him because he actually knows. And what I would do is, rather than study session, which kind of, of course isn't helpful to making friends, but I would never do study sessions. I would always go to like the learning lab with the experts that can help me, because it's like, dude, we're all going to just fumble around in the dark here. And I would rather, like, especially when I'm in college and I'm older and I have kids and my time is valuable and I don't want to just putz around, I'm like, I need to make the most of my time. And I feel like that's kind of the thing, is like, going back to those old laws of business, those 10 things that I love when you said the way to gracefully tell somebody no. I've heard, especially in Kansas City, that we show people the Midwest snub. We just say, I don't know. When really we need to say no. Yeah. And instead you just kind of lead them on because you don't want to be a dick and tell them no.
It's like dancing. It's like, most guys haven't learned to dance, the guy is supposed to be he's supposed to be strongly and very directively, making sure that you make her look like she is the star of the universe, and that's the way I was taught to dance, and that's where the first time I thought I got proved wrong. And I had some friends who I was like, I want to dance, but like this whole bump and grind thing, mid 90s, 2000s, bump and grind. It was
I feel like you could do that too, though.
What?
I feel like you could probably do that too, though.
I mean, I can, but it was just one of those where I was like, is this as good as it gets? I was like, I wonder if it can be a little more, like, I don't know, craftful, like tasteful. I don't know what the right word is, but
yeah.
But anyway, that was where, learning to dance. Then I fell in love with the Latin culture and just the way people treat each other. And, you go to a Latin show and just everybody grabs a drink and they're just moving, and it's like nobody is standing still, and it's like you go to a, white person's wedding and you're just like, all right, seriously, line dances all night long, like these songs that tell us exactly what to do, right foot, yo, it's like.
So I'll one up you. We joined an extremely religious borderline cult for a little while. Don't know if I've ever told anybody that. But we didn't even have dancing. We didn't have dancing or alcohol at our wedding.
Spirit, man.
It's like it's one of our biggest marital regrets. Like if we could go back in time, dancing and alcohol would be at our wedding. Yeah. It was silliness, but you're absolutely right. Yeah. So how long? Sorry, like I just want to keep this arc.
This segment is sponsored by Wild Child. It's our lightest roast. This one is our medium roast. We keep that on drip quite often. It's great.
They're all great.
Espresso, though.
They're all amazing.
Yeah. Well, this is
just
only
like you're
two
amazing.
Of about 7.
You're just like you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So real fast, how can people still buy Thou Mayest Coffee? Online only?
Oh man, no. We got
Where else?
We got outlets all over town. So. McLean's Market and the Upper Crust and Heirloom Bakery and Hearth and gosh, I am losing track.
Google it.
I'm doing bad. Yeah, on our website. If you go to our website, we have a map on Find Us. But the latest one is called Cafe Equinox. And so, I mean, without unless you really want me to get into that right now.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So yeah, Cafe Equinox, sponsored by Wild Child here. So Cafe Equinox was something that we thought of about 7 to 8 years ago when we were remodeling.
Who thought about it?
My family. So we right now refers to me and my brothers. Yeah. So Jonah was running our Shawnee store, and he had the foresight then to kind of design that whole area that we serve from right now into it was just kind of a closet. And he said, let's open it up, we'll frame it in, and we'll put like a walk-up window, and maybe someday we'll be able to put a cafe in there. I remember I just started roasting. This is like 7 or 8 years ago. And Brian Phillips, he was at Broadway at the time. He was Broadway's roaster. I remember him coming, and I was like, who called him? Like, oh, this is Brian Phillips, man. He's like one of my heroes, the local roasting legend. He won the Good Food Awards, and I'm sitting here fanboying out and, like asking questions about how to get a cafe, which I did not have any aspirations to do at that time. For sure, I still thought I was going to be a part of the family business, and I was trying to find that for a long time, and we can talk about that in a little bit, but I don't know. That was just a time when it wasn't really right for any of us, so it never happened. So it hasn't happened for like 7 years. So then we closed down our shop in the Crossroads December 31st, and then took the month of January off. I was just recovering.
Yeah.
And just, a lot of...
And is that the death of ego that you were talking about earlier?
No, it was happening long before that, but definitely last year was like, that's my mantra this year is like, it's just this chant of like kill self. And it sounds like morbid but it is like that ego, which I think is really funny and also timely because this next part is by our super ego, which this is what I'm trying to kill, which ironically is like one of the best-selling coffees that we have, So
that's why Instagram and Facebook and everything.
Yeah. So super ego, and like these are why these super egos, like this huge philosophical thing this is a huge part of who we are. I mean, these are like this is what we built our company on right here. I mean, those two coffees alone have like kind of been the backbone. And for us, it's like, it is the core of, like, we do think the ego, and this goes to that TED Talk, like the ego part, to be able to kill that thing that thinks it's so smart and that it's always right, and then it knows the one way to do that one thing that nobody else has ever imagined or thought of, or like, you think you're something special, you think you're God's greatest gift to the earth, and that you matter, and it's like, we don't, and that's okay, but we have a chance to like be awesome at life and for people to remember us and to make a difference and like leave positivity and like make somebody want to live better, and make like connecting other people to something like probably what you feel, it's like those days where you're in that zone and you just like get the goosebumps and you're like, you'll be driving, the sun comes up and like all of a sudden you're like driving into the city and you're like crying. And you're like, what am I doing? Like, this is awesome. Like, what an awesome, like a responsibility, just the opportunity for that life, and to be able to do something that like living your dream. Like, I have a dream, and I'm gonna go follow it. Like, who the hell do you think you are? Like, in culture, in society, and in your place in history, that you can say that? How cool is that? Like. That to me is like the greatest gift that America can offer to us, right? And it's that dream that we built this freaking country on, and a bunch of immigrants, and now we're like, not to get political, but it's like now we're saying like, no, not for you, but like for us who are already here, so we can continue just building an oligarchy of what? Like, it's freaking sticks, man. And it's like, it's just meaningless. It's no connection, and everybody knows that. And we're letting it happen, and that's where I think there is, we call Thou Mayest, like TM, it's like the movement is what we call it internally, just because, we just want a bunch of people who give a damn, who want to see this world made more positive. Like, it's not just about like, these headlines and these talking points and just these BuzzFeed, that dominate, our feeds for like 24 hours and they're gone, and then we're riled up about something else, and we're riled up about this, and now somebody's cutting me off in traffic, and now I'm lashing out at my wife, and I don't know. I mean, I just don't. I think that plants help.
Yeah.
I think that coffee helps. Just those little like those glimpses of beauty throughout your day, something to remind you, like, oh yeah, I'm part of like this really big thing called like Earth.
Well, and I think you're totally right with going back to a couple of things. Starting where you're at. So starting with, hey, can I bring more positivity into the world and more love and compassion and more personal touch while doing coffee? Like the answer is absolutely yes. Like there's not one area of life maybe that could not be improved on, made more personal, made more beautiful. And like, yeah, you're exactly right. All those kinds of questions were the same things that were rolling through my head when I was going to start Empowered Electric. Yeah. It was those same kind of, what if I cared more about people and less about profit? Yeah. And it's like, you're right when you said,
what if I can get paid to do that thing?
Oh, yeah.
And you get your first paycheck and you're like, we made it.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's just the beginning.
And that check's gone immediately. Right. But there was, so we just had, not going into great detail because we're just kind of in it right now, but there was a huge mess up on a project where it's going to cost us a lot of money. And whenever that phrase, do I care more about people, less about profit, it's been funny that people have said like, hey, how have you reacted? Have you just ripped into somebody? And the answer's always been like, no. Like I care more about people and less about profit. And I care more about the people that are involved knowing what was done wrong, how could they improve, how could they be done better, and treat them with dignity and respect. Dude, money's money. Like, if it bankrupt our company, that would suck. It's not going to. It's not that big of a catastrophe. But you know what I mean? It's just this small thing that I'm able to go, that doesn't matter. You matter, and how we deal with this matters. This interaction right here, that doesn't matter. This matters.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, dealing with people is just, it's the hard way. Nobody wants to do it. Everybody wants it just to be algorithmic and numerical, and it's hard to have touch points in a company that costs more money. It takes more energy. I mean, this is just simple physics, man. This is just about energy. Yeah, and the more you touch something, literally touch something, like why are some of those whiskeys like more expensive than others? Probably because somebody like literally touched it more. And that's in the same in plants. That's how it works. Because you have to space the plants out. You have to keep the plants like dry and clean, like the under leaves that are like, I'm thinking of geraniums. You have to make sure you deadhead them so it doesn't get what's called botrytis, which is like a fungal thing, and you have to touch them a lot. And that's what I think care, and that's what I think craft should be, just naturally. But now we're going into this automation age, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think we should just be aware of it and use it, and be able to recognize like it has great potential to completely automate everything, which will take our entire society like down to, it's just going to be, nothing is going to be special anymore. So, or it's just going to be way too expensive because, that's where I'm looking at, and not to get into the future of retail, but there's like, there's a freaking war coming against, brick and mortar versus, online retail. So we're trying to flirt with both of them right now, personally, because, it's partly the future and it's partially like an opportunity that we have to touch people in a more dynamic environment that stimulates creativity. And it's like that social network that you can feel. And so that's what we call it, like next gen community centers, where it's like this, just the next iteration. Oh yeah, it happens to be serving great beverages. Of course, that's a given for next gen community centers. I mean, I can make up whatever industry I want right now and say that's what it's going to be called. I just coined next gen community centers. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Like I'm making this up right now. So I'm just saying like, this is a thing, like I'll say it and then it happens in terms of like, no, like that's, I'm not saying I'm like, nobody's thought of this or anything like that. All I'm saying is like for where we're at and what we're doing. Well, yeah, we are in the people industry. We happen to be doing coffee. That looks like community. That looks like a community center. It looks like we throw parties. We have, events that happen. We do everything from American Public Square to like showing James Comey trials like live and on C-SPAN, and everybody's drinking Caffe cocktails, coffee white Russian Guards.
Is that made with hemp milk?
No, it was coffee white Russian garnished with the Cheeto. So it was like very, very, it was gross, but I got featured on the BBC.
So
that was crazy.
So when you talk about,
I got an interview with them.
Oh, that's super cool.
It was a weird day.
But when you talk about the future of retail automation versus brick and mortar, so you said you're doing both. I think one's easy to automate, like your sales of coffee. You know, some assembly line, some order taking algorithm that says super ego ships to this date. See you later. But the experience that I was talking to, standing in line, watching you smile at each person, you seeing me with my kids on the couch,
if you would have known who else would have been in there, and I would have been able to have more time, you know, and that's why like having the space that we used to have and that we'll recreate here soon is like I want to be back there like orchestrating that and like feeling that rhythm, because for me that's how like when I'm in those spaces, like it feels more like this. It doesn't look like this.
So here's what's funny. I think you're doing that, like your spirit, your energy, your personality, everything in it. So I stand in line, right? Yeah. I stand in line with my 4 kids, and a couple stand behind me and they have a little baby. So I start talking to them, and they literally go like, I think this is somehow associated with Dalmaeus. So I start talking to them and tell them about you, right? Start raving about you, strike up a conversation. We talked the entire way there. I saw that. And then what happens whenever I get up there? I end up buying their coffee and their muffins and things, and they end up following us and messaging and saying, "Hey, when we came there, we were praying that we could bless somebody on our way there. Funny. We had no idea somebody would bless us. Thanks so much." Yeah. And it's like I had no intention to buy their coffee, but like getting there with that community, with that experience.
There's serendipity that happens.
You can't automate that.
Yeah, I know, but like it doesn't really matter because I've heard this 10 million times in 10 million different directions. Like I don't care about, like I care about you and I care about the story, but I'm just saying like whatever the end result is, I just know that like what I'm in the business of doing is like maximizing serendipity, and you can only do that through like the orchestration of like beautiful product and friendly service and stimulating environment and cue the music and make sure that lighting is just right. So like details of like things that nobody are paying attention to, like smells and of oxygen and of toilet paper in the bathroom, or just a clean bathroom period, you know, for a place that sells laxatives, you know?
No, you're absolutely right. So here's what's funny is I just, once again, going back to it, I think every brick and mortar retailer should think about this, is because, you know, people are talking about truck drivers losing their jobs with self-driving cars. And I remember even somebody talking about the construction, somebody was talking about the construction industry possibly going away through automation. And it's like, once again, whenever we started Empowered Electric, we said, hey, what if we were the electricians that people didn't have to use, but they wanted to use? Right. Once again, that's experience. That's our electricians not being sour ass dudes that like are electricians because they have to be, but because they want to be. There's love, there's passion, there's driven. And so like someone like you, I'm sure that you're not hiring a bunch of baristas at minimum wage just because they want to clock in and clock out.
No, okay, so yeah, I mean, not to get, I don't know, maybe we are supposed to get crazy into it, but you know, when we hire, it's like, yeah, there are people who it's like, listen, and I love it when they're direct with me, like, I'm just here for this amount of time just to get a paycheck because I'm putting myself through school because I've got this greater vision. I'm like, cool, great, that's fine, fantastic. Here's what I want from that availability. Here's what I expect from you. You good with that? Sign here. Cool, great, let's go. And then there's the people that you hire who are like, hey, I think I want to pursue coffee as a career. And then you're like, I'm going to beat some sense into you very quickly that you do not want to do this. So there's those types of people. And then there's the people who are just there to connect. And those types of people are the ones that will build the entire empire on. And when I say empire, I don't mean like in this megalomaniac, you know, we're going to dominate the world, but it's like we want people who are going to be able to connect and to be able to orchestrate with other people. And to us, that looks like a economy of relationship. It looks like an economy of friendship, of belonging, of inclusion, of arms open. This is our house. Cheers. When you walk in, everybody knows your name. I already know what you want. I already have your order ready because I pay you to freaking pay attention. Wake the fuck up. I need your eyes open. I want you walking around, and you're not in zombie land right now. You are here to touch somebody's life and make their day better. And if you don't do that, I know we're going to have our bad days. You know, we're going to have days that we don't feel like being there. We're a little bit hungover. We partied a little bit too hard or whatever. I get that, you know, and there's so much grace for that. But on the whole, it's like, why are we here? You know, to serve a bunch of commodity, like this is just a commodity. Yeah, this is maybe a little more special grade commodity, but it's still a commodity, you know. This is the second highest traded commodity behind crude oil, you know, in the world. And like, it's crazy how big it is, but also how dark it is. You know, it's one reason why it's like it drew me in was just watching the documentaries, watching just seeing it on the backside, seeing it at farm level, you know, seeing the trees, seeing like, this is agriculture. And I'm like, but that's my grandpa back in Kansas growing wheat. They're just growing coffee. It's plants, you know, it's farming and it's plants and it's maximizing space and nutrient depletions and how many more crop cycles do you have left before you have to give it a rest, and just all the crazy like science and math that has to go into just like growing people's food, you know?
Yeah.
Thanks,
and it
cool.
really, well, and I feel like the more you talk, it's like we're on a level playing field. Like what you're doing is not sexier than what the farmer's doing. And like the restaurant owner isn't sexier than the plugs and switches that we install to power the oven that cooks the food, that lights the light that dims.
I've
you know what I mean?
had some of and just to kind of like put the period on the end of this, like who I hire, like they're putting the final touches. Like it went from farmer, who hopefully he did everything right, who took it to a co-op, hopefully they did everything right. Hopefully the government's being somewhat not nefarious and not trying to, you know, mess with this crop too much. And hopefully it makes it over here and it doesn't sit in port for too long, that it can like make it all the way here to Kansas City, where I can then go grab it and then it sit in a warehouse until I need to roast it and finally roast it, hopefully correctly. Hopefully that gets delivered. Hopefully they've got their grind setting correctly dialed in, and hopefully they're correctly giving that to somebody who then hopefully correctly like takes a drink. Wow, how many possibilities that this could go wrong, and how much like mitigation we have to have. So my thing is to remove variables. That's my job as a retailer. Like I want to completely manipulate somebody's environment in a positive way. You know, I'm not talking about like I'm just not sitting here, you know, as a puppet master. But in a way, it's kind of like Disney, where it's like you give those cast characters, you give your teammates, you give your employees permission to make somebody's day, you know? And that's, for me, it was like, buy their coffee. Like if they see that they're struggling, help them. Like I didn't pay you, I'm paying you. You're gonna impress me more if you're aware of that and you're like getting out from around the bar to like hug somebody or like introduce somebody or like make sure that somebody safely makes it in the door, you know. That's going to get me fired up more, because like I've had some great cups of coffee, but I've had it from like this side where, you know, the pinky is up and they're like setting it like cortado, you know, at the bar, you know, and you're like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I mean, you have just want to like hit it like back at them. You're like, why are you so pretentious? Like, oh, I only grow coffee at 1,800 meters above sea level. It's like, oh, you know what a meter stick is? I'm an American. And unfortunately, like we I don't know. We try to like play nice in the industry, but I'm still trying to like decide why it matters, to be quite honest, because meters above sea level versus like just working with good communities, for me, makes all the difference in the world.
See, that's where I would go back to whenever you described it. Goes from the farmer that you hope did everything right to the co-op, to the government, to the Port Authority, to all those different steps, and you hope they did everything right. I think doing something right, people think there's a bullseye, and that bullseye is actually a very wide gamut. Like it doesn't matter so much what altitude. I mean, I know it does, but it also doesn't.
Yeah,
and it's like,
it depends on the use for it too. I mean, like we are designing some of these coffees. Like when I say it's the backbone, like this is who we are at our core, is our espresso program, because you know how many espresso beverages or like how many lattes you make a day. You know, it's insanity. You know, because most people don't. I mean, we're trying to get them closer. We call it show and leg, whether it's through like sexy packaging, which, you know, one of my favorite packaging as just a side note is this one right here. That one is our Cold Start. That one right there was designed by, well, all these were designed by Collective X, which is, you're going to want to watch them. They're going to do some cool stuff. But they got a hold of a lot of there's so many Easter eggs that they bake into these things. Like just the goofiness that goes into this is pretty deep, and we haven't even got to tell those stories yet.
But see, what I'm getting at, and tell me what you think about this. So, because I've heard Andy Frisella of S2 Supplement Superstore or First Form or all these kinds of things, not a proud sponsor of the podcast, but we wholeheartedly endorse him. But he talked about for a while that if you have mint chocolate, which I actually have that up there, mint chocolate, it is the best tasting protein powder you can ever taste in your life. And he said someone buys it 99 times, and the 100th time they buy it, they drink it, and they're like, oh man, this sucks. This doesn't taste like it did 99 times. Who knows? They might never buy it again. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, I've bought a lot of protein powders from him. Some of them have sucked. Like, to be completely honest, that candy cane one was not good at all. It's still up there. We're trying to drink it, but I'm bought into him. So any one of these coffees, I would buy them. Even if I bought them 100 times and they tasted different every time, I would buy them because the experience that you provide while going and meeting you and buying into you, I honestly don't think the perfectness of it matters. I think you matter.
There's multiple things that drive people, whether it's to produce, to buy a product or to consume a beverage or to like consume your space in a way, whether that's just getting inspired by it or whether it's they feel like they're a part of it. Ultimately, I want people to feel like they're a part of something more. And my job is just as a steward to like protect the brand and make sure that the brand stays like on its course. But I don't want it to be about me. Like I said, this is about an ego death. And for me, I mean, that just means like looking inside yourself and making sure that I think Plato, know thyself, and that whole allegory of the cave where it's, you have what you see in front of you. He talks about coming from this darkness and there's this light and it's casting shadows and you think that is the world. Until you like emerge out of that cave and you're like, where have I been my entire life? And it's that moment of illumination. It's that like moment of like connectivity to something, you could say it's like divine almost, where it's just that spark that makes, when you see them, you're like, whew, I don't care what it is they're selling me. I'm bought into them because they're bringing the heat, they're bringing the fire. And I believe like just in general, that authenticity, like when it's true and when it's there, like it can't be faked, and people, you can't fake it. So it's just contagious, and so it just spreads like wildfire. Oh, have you heard about this? Oh, have you heard about that? Oh, I heard about this guy that doesn't even, sponsor my podcast that I'm giving shout outs to, and he's not paying you to do that, so.
Yeah. And so once again, going back to, I feel like with the whole scare of detachedness and unpersonalness and all these kinds of things that you're talking about, you want to do well in business, you want to do well in your life, start pursuing people and experiences and creating experiences. And I don't mean sleazy experiences. I don't mean one night stands and crazy freaking acid trips. I'm not talking about that per se. I'm talking about real experiences. Every Joe Rogan listener right now is like, wait a second, bro, have you tried DMT?
Hold on.
What I'm saying is those experiences you cannot automate. I don't care how cool the new freaking Fortnite game is. It's not as cool as seeing the couple with the baby and buying their drink and them saying,
I'll put it this way. Like,
away.
this was one of the last stories on one of the last days of our shop down there. When we kind of did this last day party where we just invited people to show up and just share their stories. We just wanted to hear what the stories were because we had our heads down for so long. And we had the creators group came to us. They do videography and vlogs, and they were like, hey, we'll film this stuff. We have no clue what we're going to do with it. And I still haven't even watched it yet. I'll just be a puddle of tears on the floor, I'm sure. But there was some of the most crazy stories that came out of that space. And one guy, I hope I never forget this, but I was in my office and I was like packing up stuff and just like being like kind of reminiscing about what had happened and just the gravity of like, damn, like that was fun. That was good. We're like going out on top, where everybody's, it wasn't like a, slow fade. It was one of those like, no, don't go. Why must you? And then it was like, we're sorry, we have to, and we'll be back though. And it's like, but will you? And all the questions, and just for a month straight of just people like, I don't know, getting ready or whatever, because when we opened Equinox, it was just nuts. But, God, where was I going with that?
Last story, you're packing up in your office.
I'm in my office, and this dude comes over, who is interviewing, in the room next door. He just like landed on my shoulder and started sobbing, and he was just like, it wasn't ugly crying, but he was trying to hold it together. And I'm like trying to close the door. The guy's like following with the camera. Give him a moment. Come on, guys. But in retrospect, I probably should have. Yeah. They're like, good content. And I'm like getting all teary, and he's like, thanks, man. Like I met the love of my life, and like we were going through hell, and like we saved our marriage in that room next door. And then from there on out, like, we've had a happy marriage ever since. And I just want to say thank you for, providing the space for us to like figure that out, and that was just one of a lot. And it's like, God, man, like what a privilege to like be able just to be a part of somebody's journey, sometimes just for a minute, the brand, the people that we are, like, are you Empowered Electric, or is we Empowered Electric, and once you die to that self, and it's like, it's just this big ball of energy. And like, I'm just sitting here saying like, I just want to keep making sure that those sparks and that fire is just like going and going, like for that brand, so that it can just touch people and they can tell stories, and then it can get passed on to so-and-so, and it can just continue to like spread like wildfire, because it's contagious and it's raw, and it's something that is worth talking about. It's something worth keeping on your counter, because it's designed beautifully, and you want to tell the story about like, how this made you feel and why this plant, I don't know, whatever people find valuable about that. Like, it's just talking points, and creating a brand that gives you talking points to connect with others, whether it's like, I heard him talking about the Almaeus, and all of a sudden I have a vested interest. Is it necessarily Bo Nelson, or is it like a larger thing than Bo Nelson? And that's where I'm like, I hope that DNA, just like it was baked into me, that I'm like able to turn around and like bake it into this like organism, this thing that like is beyond me, it's beyond myself, and it's like touching people's lives, and it's making a difference, and it's being positive, despite like the fact that, we've not even really got a chance to try yet. And it just keeps winning. And we're like, but we're joking, like the pizza bags that we did. Like, we did a collaboration with Grinders where we like, you buy we found this really oregano pizza-esque, very marinara coffee. It had these notes that were very beef brothy. It was this Kenyan coffee, and it's like really spicy. Oregano, it was marinara sauce. So anyway, we partnered up with Grinders, and it was just a joke. It was just a joke. Buy a bag, get a free slice. Pair this with pizza, and all of a sudden, there's a lot of people around the country just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you going savory? Everybody else is going fruit bomb and floral. They're going like bright and hoppy, and all of a sudden you start doing a sour. Everybody's doing this sort of electric work, and now, whoa, wait, what are you doing? You're doing something different over here, and you're like, I'm just doing I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I'm literally messing around, and you're buying it, and it's great. Like, we have bags that aren't even labeled. Wish I would have brought one, but it just has a psychedelic deer on it, and then it has a QR code. And if you scan the QR code, you hope like it's going to go someplace like illuminating, and this bag just looks so psychedelic. You're like, what trip am I about to go down? And it's this like really grainy photo of like a dude getting slapped in the face with an eel. Like when you swipe your hand across the screen, it's like the most anticlimactic, like stupid, like 13-year-old self that you're like, oh, gotcha. Like, it's so stupid. We don't have any labels on it. We put it on our shelf and people buy it, and we're like, well, I I guess that's one way to liquidate some coffee. Like, I wonder what else we can, like, you know, and as long as, and that's where I think that business gets, you know, gets it wrong, where it's like, once you have that trust, you know, don't ever like take that for granted, and don't abuse it, you know. And that's where I feel like a lot of companies, they'll sell, you know, and this is easy to do because it's so hard to be an entrepreneur. And you get somebody else come along and they're like, hey, I'll make all that pain go away. And it has a number to it, you know, and you're like, whatever, you know, those guys probably see something more, you know, and you're just sitting there like, just make the pain stop. Like, I'm tired of getting punched in the face. But if you would have just like hung on a little while longer, like maybe you could have had that same, you know. So I know, I get why a lot of people like sell out. I get why a lot of people like, whew, like we made it, you know, we sold for $6 billion or whatever. I'm like, but could you have sold for 12 billion? You know, like, could you have been a better, like, you know, I'm 33 and it's like, my back, I slipped a disc today. I'm like, my body's like, you need to chill out, man. And I'm like, just kind of cranked on at 11, where it's like, I'm getting like 4 hours of sleep because like, I'm just on fire right now. Like, I don't know what it is about, I wouldn't say like, it makes it sound like he's on fire, he's heating up.
NBA Jam.
It's like, dang, dude, like so here, I'll just give another plant analogy. I should just always give plant analogies.
Plant analogies.
It's like a bamboo shoot, and there's all this energy that's stored in the rhizome, which is like the runner. And then once it breaks the surface and it starts growing, it can grow multiple feet per day. I mean, you can like watch this thing grow. It's just crazy how much energy is like, and how quickly it just takes off and just tries to get up there. So, cause competition, you know, and that's where I view is like, that's how I feel these past 4 or 5 years have just been like punched in the face, like thing after thing, and like barely keeping it afloat, but like knowing that there's like a possibility for the other side, and there's like something worth like getting up and just like getting beat back down again every day, you know. And you're like, I choose this life, or I accept this thing, or like, despite its hardness, like you lean into it, you know, because you know it's building muscle. Like you're like, you watch a fire documentary and that'll just fuck with your head, because you'd be like, am I that dude who everybody's saying, warning, the ground is approaching quickly and you don't have a parachute on, and you're like, no, it's gonna be all right, and you're just being stupid, you know. And you're like, I don't want to be stupid, but I also know that I have to lay it all on the line. Like, it's gonna hurt, like it's gonna be painful, like growth, muscle, you know, anything worth pain in life. There's something about it. There's something about death being life, or like, you know, the pain that makes you better, or like the hardness that like makes you successful, that just don't let it rule you, you know. Don't let it like completely dominate, you know. It's like Star Wars, like the hate has like filled you. The hate has like made you powerful, and it's like, yeah, it could. You know, keep that in check. Like, that's something dangerous. Like, it's more complicated. It's more like, have you heard about The Secret? You know, have you heard about that thing in life that's like, once you tap into that energy, you'll be forever changed. And once your alignment with the universe, and you're like, this is weird, you know, but like recently, it's like, once you get in that flow, once you're in that, I think people say like, you know, when I say I'm on fire right now, or like I'm in the flow, or we should probably use a
plant analogy.
No. I was thinking electric analogy right now. Like, what's that? Like the spark that happens. Like
I don't know.
Fire in the hole. I don't know, when you flip the switch,
turn a breaker on. You don't want to see you don't want anything bad to happen. There's a buzz when a transformer goes on. Yeah. No. Well, and dude, honestly, just your positivity and your energy, I can't imagine closing down a location and being able to hit the next thing so hard and so positive.
I think that's why my back decided to give out today.
To get you to slow down.
Yeah, my body's just like, dude, you're killing yourself, man. Well, like, but it's like my insides are like, just let's go, you know, come on, like we've got it. Like, it's one of those where it's like, I don't know. I have a stupid, like such a dude's way of like seeing the world, which is like kind of, it's a little bit militaristic sometimes, and it's that scene that is in The Patriot, and it's at the very end, and they're like all running down the hill, and everybody's like retreat, you know, and like Mel Gibson like grabs the flag, and he's like, ah, you know, he's like running up the hill, and everybody's like taking a second to like stop and be like, oh, okay, I guess we're going back, you know, and I feel like that's where like as the leader you have to be, and like, fuck, you're going to take some bullets, you know? And that's like the true, like, that's the hero's journey, you know? I mean, regardless of like what you believe, you know, spiritually, like the hero's journey is like a thing. And, you know, that like driving force, it's like, dude, what's going to keep you going when like it looks like you are going to die, you know? And it's like, bring it. Like, you fucking want this? Like, come get it. You're going to have to rip it from my hands because, like, I'm already dead. You know, what are you going to kill, an idea? Because the ideas can't die.
Well, and I think, once again, the super ego or death to ego, when we very first started talking and you had kind of let me in on the inside scoop that it was probably going to close down. I don't know if you remember, but the first thing you said to me is, I'm so scared because I've built such a great team and I don't want these people to lose their jobs. It wasn't my reputation, it wasn't my space, it wasn't anything. It was all these people that I care about are going to lose employment. And like that mama bear analogy of like, don't mess with the mama bear's cub, like that's what I saw in you. And I think that's the kind of thing is when you're living for others, when you're living for something bigger than yourself, AKA other people, you can find a resolve. Have you ever read the book Endurance about Ernest Shackleton?
No, but I'm a big fan. Like, he's one of those people where I'm like, you know, when people are like, I'm going to die. I'm so hungry I could almost die, you know? Or like, I can't do one more sit-up, you know? I'm like, have you almost like lost your arm? You
so
know?
there's this point in the book. You just listen to the Audible. It's amazing. But so Ernest Shackleton was the first person to take an expedition to Antarctica. And while there, they get trapped in some icebergs. Their boat just gets obliterated and sinks.
Didn't they like have to resort to like cannibalism?
No, they didn't resort to cannibalism.
quite?
No. So their boat cracks. They get on lifeboats and they're literally living. They're like floating from iceberg to iceberg on life rafts for 2 years. They only ate meat. They clubbed seals. They found hundreds of penguins and literally just massacred them all and they just ate meat. So they got a lot of scurvy, amputation, but not one person of the entire crew died. But anyway, so they make this camp and they know they've got to try to sail to South Georgia. And they do it with a handheld compass and a life raft and like freaking oars, and they make it, but only like 6 of them of the 50 crew. Okay. I'm getting somewhere. Yeah. They get there, they climb this freaking huge mountain. There's 3 of them. They climb this huge mountain, and they're trying to climb down, but it's getting dark, and temperatures are just dropping like crazy. They're like chopping ice stairs in. And finally, Shackleton just stops, and he says, hey, it's getting too cold. If we don't get down this mountain, we're going to die. If we die, they all die. What we're going to do is we're going to all hug each other. We're going to sit on our butts, and we're going to sled down this mountain. And the second guy's like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. What if we hit a rock or a tree? We'll die. And he said, if we don't get down this mountain, we will die. If we die, they all die. Second person said, this is absolutely insane. What if? And he had another reason. And he said, I don't think you understand. And he just kept reiterating, if we die, they die. And so they all just like grabbed hold and freaking slid. And it's some insane amount they slid down. Yeah, literally. And got to the bottom of the mountain, and they all lived.
It's like, dude, you're not fully prepared. You have not thought about like how this gainer is going to end.
Well, but I think no, but once again, I think he did think about that. He knew the trees, he knew the rocks, he knew the cliffs, he knew the likelihood, but he knew the likelihood was very scarce that they were going to make it down alive, but he knew without a shadow of a doubt, staying right there, they were going to die, and if they died, they all died. And I think if when Thou Mayest closes down and you go, you know what, I'm not going to take the month of January off, I'm going to take every month off. It's over. 100% certainty all those people don't have a job, at least in your aura, that those experiences aren't happening. And I think sometimes you don't need 51% odd. You just need 1%. And I just heard Jesse Eitzler interviewed, who's this awesome endurance athlete and all this kind of stuff. And they were asking him why he cared so much about health. And this could be spiritual health, physical health, mental health. And he said, if you have health, you have hope. And if you have hope, you have everything. And like giving up is the only way that you 100%, just like you were saying, I can't do one more sit up. Like when you give up, you know how terrible that tastes the next day when you know that you didn't give it your all. And I think just honestly, the death of Thou Mayest coffee shop location in the Crossroads, it wasn't all. It didn't take everything from you. It took a lot. It might have took even 99%, but there was 1% left that goes, I'm not done yet. I'm not calling it quits.
It's one of those where it's like, it's okay to I used to hate this, but like, cause I feel like it's hanging out in just the land of the ambiguity and the mediocrity of like staying, you know, I don't have to take a side because I'm everything, but the, just kind of like, it is what it is. It's kind of the ambiguity of just like, whatever will be. And it was like, I thought that you just had to be so fired up all the time and like, it's okay to not be okay. You know, it's like, you know, we're all like hurt, scarred. I mean, we're human, you know? I mean, there's none of us that are, you know, perfect and none of us that are going to do it correct. You know, we're all going to make mistakes to a degree, you know, to what degree, you know, debatable. And I guess like this is ultimately, you know, and just from my business partner, Bill, from he and I's standpoint, it's just the power of decision and the power of choice. It's like the only thing we have, you know, the power to choose to want to like take that risk, you know, that like, hey, if we don't do this thing, it might completely fail. Hey, if we don't take this one person with us, like, you know, this person in particular, you know, it's like, I just, yeah, I mean, the things that you have to do in order to like, who's going to win, you know, and at what cost, and where do you draw those lines? And a lot of people don't want to talk about that. I'm sure when they're sailing off from London or wherever they left from, you know, that they're saying like, hey, we're going to have to like club seals and we're going to have to decide who's going to live and who's going to die at the end of this thing. Nobody goes and messes with their operating agreement when they first start. Like that's such an important thing in like entrepreneurship is like the practicality of like, get that operating agreement freaking tight because like if, and let your expectations be known and be a strong communicator, at least somebody, you know, in the group, somebody who wants to talk about what happens when you die and all of a sudden your duties are like thrust upon me, you know, when somebody is like running, you know, they ran a red light, it's not even your fault, you know, you're doing everything right and like shit happens, you know, things happen. This is a messy, sloppy, you know, there's no white, there's no black, it's just like this big gradient of gray and we're just like stumbling around with our eyes half open like in this drunk stupor like trying to find what, you know, self or money or happiness or peace or sobriety or I don't know, whatever that thing is that we're, you know, connectivity, whether it's through phones or whether it's this or power, you know, whatever we get our jollies on, I like whatever people are attracted to, it doesn't really matter. It's all in the spectrum of like, what are you doing while you're here? And what you've been given a skill set, you've been given a choice, you've been given a brain to be able to do something right now. And that would suck. And this is what me and my business partner said at the beginning. This is why Thou Mayest exists. When we're laying on our deathbed someday and we said, hey, remember when we were in like our early 30s, like our late 20s, early 30s, and we decided we wanted to do this coffee roasting thing? What happens if we never, what happens? I wonder what would have happened if we would have done that when we were young, you know, when we're laying on our deathbed, thinking about like our early days, saying like, man, what a bunch of cool stories. And I guess like sometimes I know stories don't, I mean, everybody says stories are powerful and stories are important, but like, what stories are you living right now? You know, because a great story is like, you know, it's going to be if you become lifelong friends with those people that you turned around and had the balls to say something to, and the balls to like pay for their actual meal, which they got a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
that was a big ticket.
Found out.
Didn't leave us a tip either.
Bull crap.
You walked away.
Bull crap.
I signed for you.
Then you should have gave yourself a tip.
That's all right. I gave us a little scribble sign. Yeah, no, it's one of those that it doesn't matter. Like the what happened that day is like the creation of story and the chance for you guys to collide into each other. Like, was that for a purpose? Was that for a meaning? Was that for a long-term, a short-term relationship? I don't know. I'm sitting here just saying like very broad strokes and like this is me kind of in my core, like really enjoying like kind of this Zen minimalist, like / Nordic approach to design and just to mentality. You know, the simplicity of it, but like not it's simple, but it's not lazy, which I like that because a lot of times simple, it's like, oh, we're going for a modern minimal look. It's like, oh, you ran out of a budget. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like do you have to sell a lot of espressos to pay for that $50,000 machine? Oh, it's called a Slayer. Okay.
So how has...
Sorry, that was a pot shot.
No, 100%. No, and so that going into autopilot, you're absolutely right. I mean, that getting into a routine where I mean, just to be completely honest, one of the biggest routines I'm trying to break myself out of is 11:30 at night, midnight, whenever I go lay down at night, turning on TV and watching 30 minutes of Parks and Rec for the 700,000th time. And justifying, well, there's some really good entrepreneurship you learn from Tom Haverford, his character of what not to do. But like trying to break yourself out of that routine and like, hey, stop disengaging my brain and keep it active. And so like I started reading the Stephen King book, The Dark Tower. It's like 7-book series, super long, super cool. But like just that engaging your brain, engaging your senses, like, and I mean, that's something that we preach at Empowered Electric 100% of the time is like, it doesn't, you cannot go into autopilot. It's not business as usual. It's not, this is how we do it. It's, is this best? And our best practices. So we have like, there's the National Electric Code that of course you have to stand by because it's safe and there's 2 words. I think it's safe and something practices. But then there's also best practices. What is the best way to do it? Because that's the minimum standard. So what's the best standard? And we're starting to make like training videos, Intrepid Creatives, like making like how-to videos, this is what's hilarious. So here's what's hilarious. So we're going to make how-to videos that literally sound like this. Hey, what's up guys? My name's Nathaniel Galbraith. If you've ever pulled wire into a conduit and had the head break, you know, it's one of the most frustrating things. It's loss of production, this, that, and the other. So this is how we make heads at Empowered Electric, and we're gonna show it. We're gonna put it on our website. And immediately the first question is, well, won't people copy you? Yeah. So what?
Probably.
And then they're gonna watch us. And guess what? Every electrician there is gonna be like, huh, where'd we get that idea from? Oh, we got it from Empowered Electric. So, and then it's gonna get shared and it's gonna get copied, and then we become the standard. It's just like when you grab a Kleenex. What other brand of Kleenex is out there? There's a bunch, but it's all called Kleenex, or at least in my brain, or a Q-tip.
Is it a tissue?
It's yeah, or something.
A nose
So you know what I mean?
No,
and it's
Kleenex,
like
man.
becoming the standard and taking ownership and saying that we want to change the face of construction. It's awesome and it's daunting.
And this is what
you got to activate
it.
it.
Saying earlier, it's like there's this book called Play Bigger, and it talks about like creating that new industry that is completely undefined. You know, it's like, yeah, we're creating our own category, you know? And so, I mean, it's been really inspiring because it's like, oh, by the way, you don't have to follow, you have to follow rules, but you have to know those rules in order to break them, you know? And so once you've learned them and you're like, oh, well, this is simple. Like, yeah, I know what the bare minimum is, but like, what's excellent? Like, what can I do that is freaking excellent? That's going to just touch people and just draw them into that brand. And like, what are they doing next? You know, they're aging what in a wine barrel? They're aging this natural Ethiopian in a wine barrel, you know, that they got from who? You know, these friends up at, you know, up the street, you know, and it's this completely local, brand new product, limited release. It's gone. It's already sold out, you know, and all of a sudden they're like, you got to be on it. You got to follow these guys. You got to be, you know, and all of a sudden it creates a demand. I think it's pretty interesting, like what Supreme is doing right now, where they're putting, it's this brand, kind of this.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
I know what Supreme is.
But like being able to kind of put it on everything from like
because I'm friends with Matt, I know what Supreme is. Matt keeps me up to date on the street life.
I just think it's pretty interesting. Like they're just kind of slapping their logo on things, and people are like buying.
They strapped their logo on J.R. Smith, NBA basketball player.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Right. So how can people how do people experience this brand of Valmeus, this brand of Bo Nelson? Because I understand what you're saying. Just like when I started Empowered Electric, I wanted to be bigger than me, but you are the spark that started it. Okay, right? And I think it's
there's 2 of us.
Well, and I think there are 2 of you, but it's
a lot of this stuff comes from him.
It's disingenuous though to, I think, push it back to a certain way, because like I remember, so sorry, another rabbit hole Tyler Callis. It was really fun. He's our senior project manager here. And I remember I always say to people, hey, I'm not asking you to come work for me. I'm asking you to come work with me. And Paul, my business partner, also has developed the same language. Like it's something that we just constantly say. And I said, man, sometimes I just don't want people to think of me as the boss. And he said, but you have to realize that people want to come work for you. Like people want to follow you. You are the leader. So like I get that you don't want to be the boss, but we want you to. Yeah. And so that's just all that to say. Like sometimes when someone asks you to be the hero or asks you to lead, you got to be the hero. You got to lead. Walking Dead reference. Watch it.
I have a couple questions to ask you because I came here to learn.
Well, we came here to talk about Cafe Equinox, your new coffee shop, so we have to do that also. So before you ask the question, what can people expect if they take the 31-minute drive from Liberty, Missouri, which I did on Saturday, to come and experience Cafe Equinox?
So Equinox was actually named by my dad, who runs Family Tree, because he wanted to just explore like the seasonality of space. And so we have the greenhouse available for people from the fall equinox all the way to the spring equinox. And so it goes all winter long, like putting that space out in the greenhouse when people need that space available. The rest of the year, is fairly tolerable, fairly. And so being able to move that to kind of the front of the store into the outdoors, we're going to really landscape it up nice to really create this fun little outdoor area in front of the shop, and then we'll have our space that's right inside the door there, so people can come and grab and go. They can stay and they can walk around. They can still go out to the greenhouse. It's just not going to have as much seating out there, if any at all, just because we'll be trying to. We have a lot of plants that need to go in there for the spring season, so we're still trying to figure out kind of how this thing ebbs and flows. I mean, right now it's nuts, but there's after the Super Bowl, like what else is there to really watch? What else is there to do until like everybody just has like this month of like retail's kind of getting chummed back up. Everybody's getting in buy mode again. Everybody's just like, got to get out, got to do something, the family's getting stir crazy. Everybody's like getting over being sick. It's called cabin fever. I call it chumming the waters, and people just lose their brains when spring breaks.
My wife calls it NBA. The boring thing ever.
Yeah. So yeah. It's just been interesting, like working with my family again. I mean, we talked about it, 7 years ago. Now we're able to do it, and it's just been like a wild success. So until this Thursday, we'll have seating out in the greenhouse. After Thursday, so on Friday, we're having Family Tree is having what they call their Ladies' Day, where they're giving like 20% off. It's been, I don't know how many years they've done it now. It's a very interesting, successful event that it's crazy. I mean, like I said, like everybody's just looking for a reason to get out of the house and like start thinking about spring in their yards and just beautifying the earth, and it just makes them so happy, and they've never been more excited to spend this much money. It's interesting, So we give them 20% off. You come on Friday. Saturday is the open house at Family Tree in their Overland Park. If you've never been, it's absolutely stunning. It's one of Kansas City's best kept secrets that nobody knows about. That and their Christmas. Family Tree's like Christmas that they do is just, maybe I'm like kind of biased just because I was raised in that, and like all the nostalgia that I feel about like walking through the store just like dripping in Christmas, and like, people are like, why are you such a Grinch? I'm like, you never had to hang this many, you've never been this covered in glitter in your life, And so anyway, just having all these memories attached to the greenhouse, but also like the spring open house is like the most powerful thing, because like you'll walk out in the greenhouse, you just get blasted with like this dense, heavy, like perfume air of like gardenias and hyacinths and like, what is that, roses, like all of a sudden your brain's just like in this euphoric state. All this vitamin D is blasting on you, surrounded by all this green plants, and all of a sudden just the one little tear, just, I want to work here. I want to be here. This is like the most romantic thing in my mind.
I know. I'm in a panic right now that it closes down on Thursday.
That's all right.
And that there's a lot of people I know that have not been there. And I'm trying to think of, yes, he said, didn't you hear? He said the outdoor seating in the greenhouse is no longer available starting this Friday.
Yes, yeah. So it'll be Ladies' Day, and like we're gonna be rolling right into spring, and so everybody like will unlikely be hanging out as much anyway, and they'll likely be hanging out outside.
I know, but I'm just thinking about taking the next 3 days off and just hanging out there.
Oh, you can and that's where, like, I think a lot of times, and I think this is part of it, like, seasonality is cool. Like, the same thing always in that greenhouse, like, dude, you don't want to be out in those greenhouses.
No, you're absolutely right. It's going to be so hilarious, all the people that find out that it's closed and they missed it.
What?
And they're going to be like,
tell me. What?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you 1 star.
You're gonna get so many
I'm just going
Yelp
to unload on somebody. I'm just be like, what? I'm just going to do screenshots of my post and just be like, look, watch this, look this. Like, nobody's paying attention. They don't read posts anymore. And that's where it's like it's like herding cats, man. Like,
that is hilarious.
But like, once they get upset, like, how do you make them their best friend?
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, oh, just ask for me next time you're in. And then you make them into a regular.
Yeah. No, super. So, funny story about that, which I believe I've told this story. If I haven't, I'm ruining the podcast, but, we did Underdog. Have you been to Underdog Wine Company? Awesome space. There's one in Union Hill. There's one in Crestwood. We did their first construction at Union Hill, and long story short, we didn't plug in an exit light. They failed final inspection. Felt horrible. She blasted us, Jenny. I know her by first name now because Jenny and Ryan they're good friends of us. Their future interviews on the podcast, what they're doing is fantastic. But she blasted us so mad, and I ended up going the next day and apologized personally. Said, "Hey, my name is Josh Levin. I'm the owner of Empowered Electric. I see that we missed this. We failed your inspection. I'm so sorry. I'm here to take care of this." In the email, like a Yelp review, you said they didn't plug in the exit light and so many other things. Right? Just going crazy. And so I'm like, Jenny, what else is there? And she had a couple things. Freaking this and this. There was like 2 things. It took me like 30 minutes to fix. And I said, you know what? Super sorry. What else can I help you with? Long story short, I end up hanging shelves with them, end up unboxing wine, stacking wine, end up spending 4 hours with them, talking to them.
I mean, I know my manager has a story, and there's plenty of other stories, I think, of people like, it's just people who go the extra mile and who are like being aware of the world in which we live and being really like truly alive. And that's like I'm not sitting here like saying, well, you have life and you don't. I'm not comparing people to other people. Like, we all have the life that we want to be in, that we want to live. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to reconcile with some of that stuff. I just know that there's like people out there, just like you, who are like on this quest to like create story, to like live a life that's like fulfilled, that has some sort of a meaning, that's able to like impact people. By the way, I just happen to be doing this thing that I'm like fairly good at, that I can make money, and I kind of give half a rip about, but like at the end of the day, it's like, do you care more about pulling wire? Or do you care more about like, leaving this and the relationship that you have with, Underdog,
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is, so
Dude, you still haven't billed me for like what you did at Rock Hill.
Yeah. I'm never going to bill that. It's paid.
I remember.
But so we do that. So anyways, like 6 months later, they're redoing their original space, and they call us up and they're like, "Hey, we let the GC know that you're our electrician, that we have to use you." And I'm like, well, Jenny, I super appreciate that. I wanted to make sure, you had a good experience, with the last thing, right? And in the email she wrote, I'd never use them again. And here she is calling us, going to use us again, right? Just took that conversation and just took that experience. And she's like, no, you're our favorite. And I mean, we've done so much work for them. There's been times where they have a $6 for $60 wine special. You get 6 bottles of wine for $60, where I've gone and it's cost $30. There's just those little things where like that personal interaction. And once again, I just don't think you can automate that. I don't think you can factor that out of the equation. And if more businesses stopped looking at P&L statements on where they can change numbers, and instead they thought, where can I change a life? Business would be so much better. The world would be so much better. Their enjoyment, their employees' enjoyment would be so much better.
You know what else is really enjoyable? When we get free stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like when we do giveaways, like all this coffee right here, we're gonna give it away, right? This is for you to give away.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Make somebody's day, man.
Absolutely. So guys, I would definitely urge each and every one of you to pay attention to the giveaways that are going to happen. We have 6 bags of coffee that we're going to be giving away,
and a third of the thing.
We're not giving that away,
and maybe like a half nod on That's
not happening.
Okay.
We're giving that away to Matt. But no, so definitely stay tuned, pay attention. If you don't follow us on Instagram, that is where this is going to happen. EMPOWEREDKC, Empowered KC. Stay tuned for details on that giveaway
At
for
thou
sure.
_ mayest on Instagram and at Cafe Equinox. It all pretty much goes to me. On Cafe Equinox, my brother's involved in that too.
Yeah.
So if you get some goofy, weird answer, then he probably is like trying to do social media for a minute. He's supposed to be here tonight. Son of a gun.
Dude, so did you say you had some questions, or should we wrap this up?
Yeah, man, I got plenty of questions. So are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Dude,
I'm ready.
you don't look ready.
I'm ready.
You're not ready. Now you're ready. Now you're ready. All right.
Palate cleansed.
Yep. All right. How/why does your wife let you work? Why are we here right now and you're not at home?
Right now. So
Why is she letting you do this?
yeah, so my wife knows. So
Let me follow that up. How did you sell her on the vision? Because that's what this is, right?
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. So I don't think I ever sold her on the vision of Empowered Electric. So I've told the story many, many times where she came up with the name Empowered Electric because she knew that my goal was to empower at-risk young adults to break the cycle of poverty, addiction, and self-defeat by learning kick-ass electric work. That started from her. Maybe in my heart, but it was like she's a wizard with words. She has an amazing blog where she's able to capture the beautiful things of motherhood and wifehood and all that kind of stuff in that. So she's a word expert. But I think she knew that I was a very driven person, and I wasn't driven because I wanted this stature of success or fame or fortune or whatever it was. It's what I knew it was to have nothing. And not only did I not want to have nothing, to be completely honest, the biggest fear I have is of us losing our house because I know what it feels like to get evicted over and over and over again. I just don't ever want my kids to feel that.
Yeah.
Like, I understand my kids are going to feel a lot of pain. Dude, my son, Cooper, 9 years old, has broke his nose twice in 1 month. Like, they're going to experience tragedy in some form of another. I know that I don't want my laziness or lack of ambition to ever cause that kind of pain. Now, it's probably going to cause a different type of pain. But so I think she's always known that drive was going to take us somewhere. And so when it came out in a positive way. So when I started Empowered Electric, I was volunteering at a juvenile detention center, much like this. Once a week, every night, or once a week, I would go and speak at this juvie hall. There was 30 girls, 40 boys, and I would give the same kind of like conversation about your past not dictating your future every single Wednesday, every single week. I would go and speak to these 30 girls and these 40 boys. And I remember she kind of just knew that I had this passion in my heart to tell these kids, hey, dude, doesn't matter what the culture tells you, doesn't matter what statistics tell you, doesn't matter what you believe about yourself. Your future can be different. It's something that I just believe with all my heart. And so I remember her coming one time and getting to see the interaction and to see the kids that would come in there rowdy, flipping me off, whatever, just acting wild. And then as I talked and I said a certain thing that kind of sparked hope in their life and their heads popped up and they would ask questions and stuff, she was like, man, you're meant for a lot more. And we talk about like passion.
You guys were married at that time?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was an electrician at that time. I mean, I was
working
a
union?
No, a non-union electrical company. Yeah. Just working 9 to 5, kicking butt, taking names.
For how long were you guys married? Before you went off and did your own thing?
6 years. 6 years.
When did you guys get married?
I think I was 21.
Dang.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't regretted it at all, a day in our life. And one thing that we always did is, so when we both got married, we were both working. She was the assistant director at a preschool, and I was an electrical apprentice, making $10 an hour. And every time I got a raise, she kind of cut back on hours.
Yeah.
So like our standard of living never changed for like 3 years. It's just I worked, and got a raise, and she worked less. And there came a point to where, we had kids and she was able to stay at home because I was making enough. And I kept she knew that like my drive was to provide for her, to provide for us. When she didn't realize that it was not only going to be to provide for her, to provide for us, but to provide for many others. So like when I became an electrician, I remember they told me, hey, if you put your head down, you work hard, you go to school, in 4 years, you'll make $25 an hour. And that was the answer to my fear. At $25 an hour, I know I'm never going to lose my house. I know my kids are never going to get evicted. At $25 an hour, we have financial security to live a decent enough life, right? Like some people would be like, oh, you make 100, shut up. $25 an hour, you can support your family. Yeah. And I never thought when I sat at that table and I heard in 4 years you could make $25 an hour and I could support my family, I had no idea in 10 years I could start a company that paid out $1 million in payroll and supported 30 people's families. That blew my mind. And I think that kind of vision also wasn't in Bridget until it was there. And we kind of were like, this is happening. Yeah. So that's why she knew it was just bigger than her, bigger than me, bigger than us.
And like, how do you guys find time to kind of keep that first love, like why you originally fell in love? Because that's, I mean, me and my wife find that super important. It's like, how do you stay dating each other?
Dude, so 100%. I just interviewed her on the podcast on Valentine's Day, actually. I saw it. Yeah. No, you don't need to watch it. It sucked. No, it was awesome. It was awesome. She's awesome. She's hilarious, man. Puts me on blast all the time. But so the first couple years of the business were tough. They were really tough. They were probably the toughest 2 years of our marriage ever. Even when I was traveling for work, it wasn't as hard as the first 2 years of this, because one thing she said that was so hard is when I was forced to travel for work, it wasn't me choosing it, but starting the business was me choosing it. So she did feel like it was me choosing something other than her. One of the biggest turnarounds, I think, there's two things in my opinion, is we made dating a priority. So literally for about 9 months, we went on a date every single week. Every single week, paid for a babysitter. Every single week, made a reservation. Every single week, went out. Sometimes on double dates. I mean,
where's your spot?
Dude, literally everywhere. So favorite, Rock Hill Grill. Rock Hill Grill, hands down. That's your spot. That's our favorite place. Brett Springs, Zach Martin, the owners. They're two of extremely close friends. Love the restaurant. One of the very first restaurants we did as Empowered Electric. We office there forever. I mean, we're always going to default to there with those tater tots. They're life-changing. But I just tell people, like, yeah, it was expensive. It didn't cost half, because that's what a divorce is going to cost you. Yeah, like, true. I mean, freaking spend the money, get the babysitter. And
interesting way to look at it.
And also, well, and also we would go on double dates. So I remember there was over an 18-month period, we went on double dates with over 27 different people. You want to talk about also developing friendships and finding...
Intentionally, or was it more just like, hey, we would, I don't know.
Well, so we would go on dates by ourselves, but then so it's funny, I think most married couples, even good married couples, they don't date. Yeah. So when they find out, wait a second, you guys,
it gives us a reason to
yeah. Well, so our friends or acquaintances start hearing, we started to kind of be known as the dating couple. Yeah. And so we would literally have people that we didn't know very well be like, hey, we want to, I know, right? But I mean, well, so John A. and Christina Washer, they're two extremely close friends now. And we kind of knew each other, and they were seriously like, hey, we don't go on dates. Can we tag along? Yeah. And we went to like Top Golf together. Yeah. And then we went to Blue Koi together, and then we've gone on 3 with them. Yeah. So of 27 different couples, there's been multiples.
So we have here's our fun one where you'll start off at the Rieger.
The Rieger's nice,
right? So you go up to one of the bartenders there. Doesn't even matter who it is because they're all so good. And you'll say like, you look at me right now and this get up that I'm wearing, and you tell me whatever it is that I need to drink, but it has to be like a classic cocktail. Like it has to be. Like I have to be able to order this drink at other spots, and then you just ride the streetcar and you go up and you try that same drink at every single spot, and you can only stand at the bar and order like small plates, and you just go down and you'll hit Anton's and then Nara and then pizza, and then you will end up at Il Lazzarone and then Le Fou Frog, and then like back over to Betty Ray's for ice cream with a shot of Amaro. It's a really fun date, and then at the end, you end up back at the Rieger, and
yeah, yeah. No, that is super cool. What's funny is we just found out literally last week, my wife loves old fashions, which did not expect her to be a whiskey person. I mean, if you just ever saw her, she's this small little whatever thing, and it's like, you want what? Whiskey? You like the taste of whiskey in drinks? So that was one thing, honestly. So once again, didn't cost me half to pay for a babysitter and date nights. The other thing was I brought on a business partner. So I was holding, I just imagine, that dude in Roman Greece holding the two pillars, Samson, trying to hold him. Well, he pushed him over, so not Samson, but just holding it, just going to die and lose my family, lose everything. Like, I mean, she wasn't threatening divorce or anything, but it was just all that pain. And having Paul jump on board, walk away from Mark I, where he was department manager, making double what he made here. Literally took a 50% pay cut to jump on board here, to partner up with him, and he, received, of course, an exceptional amount of equity in the company. People have criticized me to no end of, well, you gave him all this, and I'm like, dude, by him getting this with his expertise,
would you rather have $1 of like the whole entire 100% of the company? Would you rather get $1 million and own like 10%?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer to me. Yeah. Here's what was amazing. It was not only a no-brainer to me, but it was a complete no-brainer to my wife. And so every entrepreneur out there that's like, I'm not giving up equity, well, then you're not going to get real help. You have to incentivize people, and he's the only person that's received equity, of course, because also with equity comes risk. Yeah. And whenever we was like, your name on some paper. Yeah, well, not only do you sign your name, but you sign your wife's social security number on a lot of papers in those first stages. And Paul and Jennifer, his wife, who's also an amazing person who doesn't probably get as much credit, just like my wife doesn't get credit, but Paul and Jennifer, or Jennifer and Bridget.
That's why I'm asking you, like, why does your wife let you work? Because, like, I know who the brains behind this is. Like, I know why this thing was working at all. Because, like, if she didn't want it to and she pulled the brakes on it, like, you have to make a decision. You either have to say, like, do I value her and whatever this thing is that's happening right now, and go do that, or and be that husband, and that's where it's like, for me, being the, like, I want to make sure that she knows, like, if she ever wants to pull the escape cord, like, I can shut this down so quick, like, regardless of all the jobs that have been created, or regardless of all the money that's, like, you pull the brakes, I'm done, and that, for me, that's like, I don't really care that much, because, like, there's a lot of stuff that can happen. Anyway, that's I know who the boss is here. So we're gonna this next section is rapid fire. All right, you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. What's the latest in your podcast queue?
I just listened to Ed Milet's interview with Jesse Eitzler, who Sarah Blakely, the creator of Spanx.
You lost me already. That's all I want to know. I'm gonna go look it up. What's the last played on your Spotify?
My last, Kemet the Phantom.
Ooh.
He's phenomenal. Yeah. Quit Crying. Yeah. Best song.
Last book you read?
The Dark Tower series, book 3. I'm on book 4.
What is the one thing you would want your kids to remember you for?
Of course I'm going to say that I cared about a lot of people. You know what? That's it. Cause it's fun. Like, so when I'd volunteer at the juvie hall, one of the coolest things. So like I would, you've heard that expression, like, love does, Bob Goff, I think is his name. So we would go and I would tell these kids, it was a pretty cool experience. I'll tell you the story. So I'm preaching to these kids, telling them your past doesn't dictate your future. Yep. Your present choices do, and all this stuff. And a lot of the kids are getting it. Well, we find out that, we can throw them a birthday party. At the last Sunday of every month, we can throw a team a birthday party. It's like 13 boys. And so we throw these birthday parties for them. We bring them sheet cake. We bring them some Doritos, some hot fries, and Tiki Talks, or whatever the heck they're called. And I remember I literally buy them a $5 movie from Vintage Stock, right? So they put a list of 5 movies they want. I think it was like Spider-Man. I buy them Spider-Man. I buy them some Mike and Ike's. I buy them Axe deodorant and Axe body spray. That's what I buy them. And I bring it to him. We throw the birthday party, and at the end, he's kind of being kind of awkward. Like when someone's like standing too close, it's like middle school boy trying to ask a girl to dance, and I'm just like, "Hey, Joseph, what's up?" And he's like, "Hey, man, thanks a lot." And I'm like, "No, dude, no problem." He's a 16-year-old kid. I'm like, "No big deal." And he's, "No, man, thanks a lot. He just keeps saying it. I'm like, "Dude, what's up?" And he goes, "Man, you don't understand. No one's ever thrown me a birthday party before," and it was just this moment where he's like telling me, like, "Dude, I can't believe I matter to somebody. This is the best birthday I've ever had in my life. I'm a 16-year-old boy. No one's ever thrown a birthday party." And of course I bring my kids with me and we play basketball and stuff. And what's hilarious is, like, right, these are violent kids. These are kids that are into prostitution, drug running, violence, vandalism, all this kind of stuff. nicest kids in the world to my kids, right? Like passing them the ball, picking them up, trying to get them to dunk, all this kind of stuff. And those kids, you know, we get in the minivan, because I'm a suburban dad.
Dude, I'm living the van life right now.
But no, I ride Chrysler, man. Chrysler Pacificas.
That's we were looking at that. My business partner got a Chrysler. We got a Honda Odyssey.
Yeah, Honda Odysseys. Yeah, they're fantastic. They're all great. They're all great. I mean, when you're arguing about what minivan is the best, you've given up on the like cool, sexy thing.
Yeah, that's what. Well, I mean, that's what, like, what's your dream car? Like you've.
But hold on. Those kids, they get out, or, you know, my kids were driving home and they're like, those kids were so nice. They were so cool. And I was like, yeah, those kids are just like you, that given different circumstances are no different. And like, we're just having this talk. And so I think if my kids could remember that I treated everyone equal, and then I taught them that people are all equal.
Yeah.
I think is important. That we named my third boy Martin after Martin Luther King Jr. And we have a big picture of him. You know, one of the pictures where he's looking all big and awesome. And Martin will be like, he named after me. And I'm like, no, buddy, you're named after him.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, and like,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, the legacy on that is really cool. Who like, how do you truly relax? Like, if you want to really, like, you push it hard.
Yeah. So I like naps. Those are fun. Those are really fun. Dream car though, go back, hold on. Dream car is Tesla, 100% Tesla, dude. Yeah. Love them.
Have you been
I think
in
they're
one?
amazing.
One?
Yeah. They're amazing.
Not, but I know that it's one of those, because and this is why I realized it the other day. It's because, you know, I was like, what's American muscle? And then I was like, dude, Tesla is like new gen American muscle. Like,
They're
it's
amazing.
new school. It's just not old school. You know, it's just new school. And the same thing is coffee right now. It's like these are like new school and these are like old school. Like new school is like bright floral, citric, like lightly or more on the lighter side, usually a honey or like full natural process. And like, but it's like, but yeah, these were produced right here. You know, this isn't just for these like coastal things that's happening. It's right here in Kansas City. Same thing with like whether it's Tesla in the world, whether it's here versus the country, whether it's the city within itself, whether it's us within our homes. Like I think it can be extrapolated as well. But like anyway, that's
I do take it back the relaxed question, because one place that I found, because like I don't really meditate, I have a sauna. It's hot. I endure it. Anyone who's like, man, I just sit in a sauna and I just bake and I feel so good, dude. I'm like, is it hot enough? Like, I get it so hot, I'm going to die.
Have you ever done acupuncture?
I have not.
You should.
But I do that sauna and then ice bath, and it's like, it's like torture.
Like one into the next?
Yeah.
Like straight in?
Bring it.
But then you feel like a freaking $1,000,000
Oh,
afterwards.
yeah. But so in the mornings, but then I don't know if you swim at all. If you swim
I've been seeing
laps,
Instagram, yeah.
dude, I like
used to,
the reason it's amazing is because you can't hear anything. There's no distractions. Like when you're underwater, all you're thinking is breathe, 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 and you're just seeing that line. Or don't breathe.
Well,
hold your breath. No. You got to breathe. It's breathe every stroke. Breathe every stroke. But it has been one of the. It's very physically active. It's very good. So I know that's not for relaxing, but like,
no, but like
I think it's recharging.
The mental therapy of like
it's recharging compared totally.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, which leads up, indica or sativa.
100%. I have no idea what that means.
Well, what does it mean for you? Like, I guess what is your coping mechanism? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Well, you'll figure it out. We'll Google it. What is your coping mechanism?
What is my coping mechanism? That's probably sleeping. That's probably napping, dude. Like in times of extreme stress, I want to go to sleep. And curl up in a little ball, but I usually don't. So I'm like naturally given to like depression and anxiety and just wanting to quit. And it's just like, absolutely not. That's not going to happen. So that's a coping mechanism I reject.
What is that one thing that you wish somebody would ask you on your own podcast show that nobody ever asks?
That last question, the anti-sativa or whatever.
Indica versus sativa? You want me to really ask you that?
No. Dude, nothing. So, well, no. So here's the funny thing, man. I have no problem. This is probably one of the very few podcasts that I did not speak the most, even when interviewing. I have no shortage of like lack of belief or lack of like stories to tell or lack of enthusiasm to share and to project into the world. And so like wanting to to shine the light on people. So when we started Empowered, I remember me and Paul had this conversation where he didn't want to be the creepy guy he said, I don't want to be the creepy guy in the basement. And what he meant was the spotlight naturally just comes to me. And so I have to learn really hard to push it to other people and make sure. Now it's like a pendulum. It's going to like come towards me because I started it. I'm the founder. I run the social media. I'm the loudest, all that stuff. But getting to practice my muscles of going, hey, Kansas City, if you don't know who Thou Mayest is, if you don't know who Bo Nelson is, dude, you need to pay attention. I want to be able to do more of that because I think that people get in these natural grooves. So one of the reasons I started the Empowered People, not only do I think that our past doesn't dictate our future and that we have endless possibilities, but I think whenever we say that, I really am talking to you, the 42-year-old stay-at-home mom that watches Oprah and listens to The Secret and it hasn't worked yet and thinks that she's too far gone, or the 65-year-old alcoholic that thinks he's like, not only did his kids not talk to him, but his grandkids don't talk to him. Is there still hope for that person? And I know we're like stepping into the bound of religion, but I think I don't think so.
That was actually one of my questions that I didn't ask is like, because this idea of faith, it goes way beyond the religious. Like I've this last year has been more, it's been more spiritual for me than any other year of my life. And it has zero things to do with religion. You know, it just has to do with doing that thing that is so hard. Like, you know, when you say, I just want to love others. And it's like, yeah, but to what extent, you know, how many times are they going to punch you? And you're going to sit here and say, oh, but I was raised that like when I'm supposed to give my coat, I'm supposed to give them my tunic as well. And I'm like, but have you really done that? Because that hurts. Like if you're giving them your coat and your tunic, like I don't know what that means for that time and period, history, but like I'm sure that it hurts. Like it's got you pretty much are naked at that point. It's probably everything you own. You know, it's probably paying others more than you pay yourself. You know, it's probably not driving a Tesla for another year and being able to buy 3 employees' cars.
Dude, we've done some really awesome stuff just to brag on us. There's been bonuses that we've given to people where they quit the next week. Like, and I don't mean little bonuses. I mean substantial bonuses. We've given people paid time off that were going through things only to have them quit or get fired. Like we've probably flushed $10,000 to $20,000 down the drain just giving people money and then them walking out the door the next day. And there's been meetings. I mean, you have to be honest. You're a human being. There's been meetings where me and Paul look at each other and we go, dude, did we just waste $2,000? Did we just waste $1,000? Did we just waste this? And we've always, both of us, and this is what I would say, like the strength of a tribe, whether it's your spouse or your business partner and things, that people that remind you like, hey, we know that we did everything we could in this situation to do the right thing. They chose something different, and we're okay with that because we can live with ourselves. Because we don't have to live with them; they're gone. But we have to live with ourselves, and and we're gonna be the culture stick, the standard that sets for the whole company. And if we're not giving people dude, it's been painful. And I mean, I say $10,000 to $20,000, it might be more.
Yeah.
And in lost production and things like that. And you're right, it's hard, but like, I don't know, it's definitely been worth it. Even if we went out of business tomorrow, which we're not going to, but I'm just saying it was definitely worth the journey to see, could you build a construction company that's super old school, that is business as usual, that's stuck in the 1910.
What a fun experiment. Like what a fun question to ask and then like to live the answer for, you know, and that's what I think is the most fun about it, is like the people who, you know, even if it's competitors who you said like the coffee world's getting saturated, it's like, yeah, I want more people. Like I'm trying to educate more people on roasting. I would love to hold like roasting classes. I would love to have like a commissary kitchen where I just sell people green beans to like go roast themselves on however it is they connect. Because at the end of the day, it's like the more I look at people like content creators and I look at, you know, people who are giving stuff away, you know, and especially in terms of content and in terms of knowledge, like you're kind of ripping the veil. You're kind of ripping that. It's sacred, man. Like, people aren't supposed to know about the industry standards. People don't need to know that only 10% of this coffee needs to actually be Ethiopian coffee to call this a single origin Ethiopia. People don't need to know this stuff. They don't need to know that we're like, our wholesale program, $8.25 flat per 12 ounce bag per pound, basically. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy. Like, our program is designed to like make people money. And people are like, yeah, what's the catch? And we're like, no catch, make money. Because we know that when you're in business a long time, we'll be in business a long time too. Because we want to be in business a long time. Like, I want to make sure you're taken care of, and I want to make sure we grow with you. To think that, this is just like I'm just going to bring them on for a minute and let them go. And I'm like, okay, that's fine if you want to do that. This coffee is exciting by itself. That's fine. But if you want to like make a lot of money with us, this coffee is like designed to make you a lot of money. And that's where we have designed that program intentionally, painfully, to make sure that like we're keeping our costs really low. We don't have air conditioning in our warehouse, like, what a novel thought. We didn't drop, north of $5 million on like a roasting facility that, what's going to happen? Or the machines, it's like, and that's where I feel like people are giving the keys to Ferraris to like 16-year-olds saying like, don't wreck, and like, what do we expect? This isn't built for long-term sustainability. You didn't take the punches to the face. You didn't have your back against the wall. You don't have a family, you don't have all these other pressures, and that's fine if that's your choice, and you're just intentionally choosing that. But I just don't think that you can just buy yourself out of those situations. And I don't think there's a shortcut to success. I think it's like learning to build, small, like little wins every single day. One more call, one more satisfied customer, one more customer with my coffee in their hands, the smile on their face, or whatever it is that like your metric that you're trying to do. And you just little gains over long periods of time. Like, you look back and you're a winner, you have won every single time that you step up to the plate. Like, your batting average, it's just an average, you're not always going to have and that's where I think that people, it's just such an epic, story. It's like, no, it's just every day. It's the mundane. It's like standing in line and overhearing somebody turning around and being like, I give a damn. Like, I'm going to say something to you. I'm not going to act like I'm doing something important on my phone and like denying that just I'm like
refreshing
listening.
Your email. Is there a new one? Is there a new one? Is there a new
I'm
one?
so busy, I'm just so busy. I'm so important. I'm so into myself. And it's like, look around, like, connect, eyes open, heart open, like, be a spiritual being in a spiritual space and like a spiritual world. I don't know what that is that connects us all, but like, there's people who are like crying out all around us. There's people who are in trouble, or like, as Bertrand Russell, who wrote like Why I Am Not a Christian, talks about like the balm of sympathy, that we must have for like our fellow man. I'm like, well, isn't that what we were supposed to be from the beginning? Is like, yes, we can be like jackasses, and yes, we can be like bloodthirsty, like blood drunk, like savages, just like massacring. But like, those ideas don't last. Look at like Nazi Germany as a great example, just in terms of a cultural experiment, and it's not still in business today. There are things that work and there are things that don't. There are ideas that are great and beautiful, and there's ideas that are like really dark, and there are ideas that are like horrible, and are they right or are they wrong? Like, I'm not going to be the judge of that. I think that like within just as long as we're paying attention, as long as like we can recognize, who we are in that role that we play in this ecosystem, whether that's the business and the communal ecosystem that we experience as like neighbors, at that microcosm, or like neighbors on the highway as we're like driving to our jobs, as neighbors, like as we're walking down the street to that job and like picking up trash on the street. These are things that surround us all day, every day. And it's the people that I'm looking at who are like picking trash up off the street. And I'm like, do you want a job? Like, do you want to come work for an empire? Like something that we can all build towards, and it's not my empire, this is our empire, in the sense of like, this is our city. And like, if we don't start taking ownership of it, somebody else will come in and do it for us. And that's my big message right now. If I'm to share anything of importance, it's like, wake up and like realize that our candy is about to get ripped out of our hands by other cities coming through saying like, this is our thing, you know, now. And we're sitting here just like looking at the bars that they set and just saying like, we can't compete with this because we don't have budgets like they do. This is why we need to legalize and tax. This is why we need to like keep up. And I'm not saying like keep up and like we got to keep up with the Joneses and all this new trendy stuff. Should we legalize, you know, like Oregon has for like psilocybin? I don't know. Oregon's a strange place. Like that's crazy. But like, you know, where do we draw the lines on some of this stuff? I don't know. I just know that it used to be illegal and it used to be considered childish for you to write stuff down. You know, in the days of Aristotle and Plato, they're like, you got to say sharp. You got to keep the weapon sharp and like don't write it down. This new technology called writing is going to be the downfall of our civilization. And how many downfalls of the civilization through how many history, you know, how many decades, how many eons, how many things of saying like, ooh, the horse is going to kill society. Ooh, the car, the downfall of our economy. Like, ooh, AI. It's just going to rip all of our jobs and make a bunch of truck drivers and, you know, into robots or whatever. And it's like, we'll find a way to live. We'll find a way to adapt. We'll find a way to continue to make money. Like this is a pretty flexible species. You know, this is a pretty flexible like brain in a flexible globe. You know, yes, it's hot, you know, but yes, like this is insane how much snow and how much moisture we got this last winter. Who's to say what's right and wrong on that? I'm like, I just want to find those people and to be able to touch and inspire those people who are like, we want excellence. Like why wouldn't you take care of that beautiful earth that we've been given? Why wouldn't you try to like get your hands dirty in like the microbes and like that fresh taste of like spring air? You know, why wouldn't you like spend time in the forest? You know, why wouldn't you spend time like with your sand, you know, your feet in the sand or in the grass, or like there's just all this beauty around us and we get stuck into this like this monotony, this tunnel. And like, I think that's what, you know, not just TV, but like these phones and like just media, like we get zoned in, we get locked in and we forget about other things. And that's probably for me, like that's the virus that I'm trying to fight. You know, that's the people that I'm like, wake up, man, like look beyond that.
Well, I don't think anybody that is going to watch the Empowered People podcast is going to forget you. We got to wrap this up. We got to wrap this up. This has been phenomenal. As always, I feel like my passion, my meaning tank is always filled to the brim when I hang out with you. So, brother, thanks a ton for coming in and talking.
Cheers.